Hi, hello. Did you know that most people that have died in warfare in the past 100 years, of namely 80%, are all uncircumcised? Well, that's the average. That the most people, or the majority of people that passed away or that were casualties of war in the past 100 years were from nations that didn't practice circumcision. And then you got the other 20% were from nations that practice circumcision at rates of only probably maybe 50 to 60%. Do you know that? That's over 150 million people, casualties of war, uncircumcised, that still have their foreskin, that instigated the wars, or that were the main ones that were involved in it. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Okay. So I'm just giving the statistics here on circumcision, so to prove that it affects people in a good way. Now, it might not seem that way at the moment in regards to the Middle East, because there's all this nonsense going on in the Middle East right now with Israel and Gaza, and there are these little wars in countries that are meant to be 99% circumcision rates. You got all these little wars around, but in the big picture, the big wars, they're all the guys that are uncircumcised. So, and the majority of the world are people that are not. The majority of people in the world aren't circumcised. It's namely probably around 70% aren't circumcised to 80% aren't circumcised at all. So you got these countries which are involved in war that that aren't done. But yeah, again, the Middle East, it's a problem. That there's countries that are meant to be a high 99% circumcision, but there are these wars, but they're little wars, but they're still wars. Now, the thought maybe if the wars are little, maybe the people that are involved in them wars are the same as the little amounts of people that aren't circumcised in those countries, because there still are people that aren't circumcised in those countries. Okay, now, if the majority of people that are involved in war over the past 100 years, the major majority, a good high 80% of casualties, and from countries that were the main instigators of the war, were all uncircumcised, they all weren't done, maybe that means that in the areas where there's the little wars going on, where most people are circumcised, but you've got these little groups that aren't done, maybe they're those little groups that are the terrorists. Maybe they're those little groups they're the ones that are involved in war, that are those uncircumcised people from around those Middle Eastern areas that aren't meant to be there. So, I've got to sort of have faith in knowing something is going on here, because I'm circumcised. I've been circumcised since I was a baby before I left the hospital. Alright, it's called neonatal circumcision. I've got to know there's something going on here because of the Holocaust. Jews are meant to be circumcised, like 99%. But there was this Holocaust, and supposedly 6 million people of Jews were put in the concentration camps. Now, I find it hard to believe that circumcised people were died that way. Now, I figured maybe these